Greetings everyone. I hope this message meets you and yours in the best of health as we join in encouraging all to act responsibly.
COVID-19 presents the most serious
and deadly challenge
any of us will experience in our lifetimes.
We must act now.
We need to keep the Caribbean safe.
We can all help to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Please stay at home.
So Caribbean people, please stay home.
Caribbean people, please stay at home.
Please stay home. It's that simple. This too shall pass, but for now, stay home.
Stay in your yard. Stay home, stay safe.
Well, a wonderful good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. To you, wherever you are, it's a wonderful, a really wonderful Wednesday morning. It is the 5th day of the month of January, and it is a pleasure being here with you on Classic in the Morning Time, Classic 105.5 and 105.9 on the FM band. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. We're getting ready to link up with, we say good morning and welcome to our friends that have joined us on television at GBN Channel 7, Channel 11, Channel 20. If you are in cable, possibly you're joining us via the World Wide Web or via one of our social media platforms, that being Facebook or our YouTube channel. My guest this morning that we'll join in just a bit is the Minister of Education, Minister Emmalin, Pierre, and we are expected to be joined later on at some point by the Chief Education Officer, Angela Finlay. That's the conversation this morning. We're surrounding all things as it relates to the education sector. We'll take a quick commercial break. I'm getting a slight feedback on my line. I need to just consult with my technical team. And we'll be right back to The Point right here in the morning time. Okay.
Ultratech gasoline and diesel, available only at Rubis stations.
Imagine having the home of your dreams. Imagine investing in that piece of property you can call your own. Imagine finally doing that home improvement project you've always been thinking about. It's time to stop imagining and start doing. Let the GUT Credit Union help you take the first step with fantastic rates, affordable repayments, and reduced legal fees. Make the move. Get better terms on your mortgage. Use your home equity to make those dreams a reality. Act now. There's really no place like home. GUT Credit Union. It's where you belong.
Indeed, thank you, and welcome back to the program in the morning time. We're getting ready for To The Point, but before we get into the conversation with the Education Minister and the CEO, notice a traffic advisory here from the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force, and it reads, the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force hereby advises the general public, and in particular, motorists, that the River Road Public Road is closed to vehicular traffic immediately. Again, an advisory from the Traffic Department that the River Road Public Road is closed immediately. That's as of today. The closure, they say, is due to an unfolding situation of the undermining of the roadway with progressive collapse and cracks along the road surface, which poses a serious risk to the general public. As a result of this, traffic leaving and entering the tongue of St. George has been diverted to Mount Rush Public Road. Members of the motoring public are encouraged to exercise due care and caution while using this roadway due to the increase in the volume of traffic. Again, an immediate notice from the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force advising the motoring public that the River Road Public Throughway it's closed with immediate effects due to some progressive challenges to the network. Again, all the motoring public is encouraged to use the Mount Rush Public Road to gain access to St. George. And this is a notification coming from the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force. With that being said, I want to say good morning and welcome to my two guests this morning, the Education Minister, Emmalin Pierre, and we have been joined as well by the Chief Executive Officer, Angela Finlay. Ladies, good morning, welcome to the program and Happy New Year to you.
Morning to Minister, morning to you.
Thank you and welcome to the program. Normally, you probably have to ask where do we start, but I think we know exactly where we are going to start, Madam Minister, and I'm going to throw it right at you. The COVID situation continues to unfold, and we've been saying that, we'll continue to say it continues to unfold. It was on Monday during our Beyond the Headline program, after questions being asked regarding as it relates to the spiraling numbers, increasing numbers of COVID cases. The pronouncement was made that school reopens in full from this Monday. And that has been taken, it received mixed reactions. It's a decision that's made, and I'm assuming you're standing by your decision, Minister.
And that is what makes leadership challenging and exciting as well, because there are some decisions that are very easy to make, some decisions where everyone would agree, everybody loves, the decision, and there are those where, as you indicated, there would be mixed reaction, mixed views on those decisions. But I want to break this down a bit and to help us to understand, how do we make the decision to open or to close schools, right? I think that is critical to understand as a precursor to where we are right now. The Ministry of Education, by the laws of Grenada, or through the laws of Grenada, the minister can and should be the person determining when a school is open, when it's closed. So if something happens in a school, the principal communicates with the chief education officer. Chief education officer communicates with the minister to alert. Decision is taken. That's normal circumstances. In a pandemic, in a national disaster, for example, the Minister for Education must consult and get guidance on what is the next step. So if there's a hurricane, for example, Minister cannot say close or open. Minister must get directive from NADMA. In the case of a health pandemic, the Minister of Education must be guided by the technical officers within the Ministry of Health. And so those guidance, those feedback, those instructions are then filtered to Cabinet. Cabinet makes the final decision, and then the Ministry of Education inform all stakeholders. So let's establish this as a foundation. The second thing is that the Ministry of Health, in assessing the situation, consider a number of factors. They consider the health situation, the implications, and of course, as guided by international agencies that has responsibility for children, UNICEF, UNESCO, they also look at the guidance there. In the current situation, let us go back a bit to November of last year. The Ministry of Health, in assessing the situation, remember we had the Delta variant at that time. Ministry of Health gave guidance to the Ministry of Education that the opening of school was possible considering the current situation. Now, this was coming towards the end of the school term. The Cabinet, considering that activities of schools were winding down, as we would say, so the class parties and, the report signing and all of those things, took a decision that we would continue on the rotational basis based on the current activities that were taking place in school. So we did not change towards the end of the last school term. Whenever school is to reopen, we seek the advice, and we went back to Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health indicated that based on the situation, that we are free to move towards the full reopening of school from Monday gone. However, I have always said, psychologically and otherwise, allowing principal a week or so to prepare, put their markers, make sure everything is in place, even if they would have done some preparation during the vacation. Let us not bring everyone back from the very first day. So this is why we allowed that phased reopening with 1 week before everyone would return, which would be next Monday. Of course, just before that, we had the new variant detected, just a few days, and this is why we held out on the announcement until maybe the Saturday, because the Ministry of Health was observing. And so the Ministry of Health was quite comfortable based on the observation process that we were going with the phased approach. Now to the full reopening, and this is where we are now, preparing for the full reopening. The Ministry of Health's guidance remains the same, that we can do a full reopening on Monday, and this is what we are preparing for. On the 99th moment, before Monday, we've always alerted stakeholders there can be a change. We are preparing based on the current guidance as of, yesterday evening. Ministry of Health, and I know there are concerns about the numbers. Where are we now? We probably at numbers we did not have in the last couple months. The Ministry of Health is saying, one, we note the instructions, we note the guidance from international agencies, the World Health Organization, as it relates to COVID spread in schools. We note what UNICEF and UNESCO is saying about children and learning loss, and we are comfortable based on the fact that this particular variant is behaving quite differently to the Delta variant. We are still comfortable with a full reopening. This is always subject to change on the final moment. As of today, we are still in preparation mode.
When you say, Minister, behaving differently, and I'm asking you this cognizant of the fact that you don't have a medical background, but when you say behaving differently, what exactly is that assessment in terms of the behavioral pattern of the Delta compared to the Omicron that allows you to say, well, we can traverse through it?
And because I don't have a medical background, I consult regularly with the Chief Medical Officer. As Minister for Education, I want to make sure that I'm speaking to him regularly to ensure that he understands the perspective from education and we understand the perspective from health. So behaving differently, one, if you look at the statistics, and as of last night, you would notice we are still down to 0 on on hospitalization as a result of COVID-19. We are still at 0 in deaths. So what is going upwards? The number of cases, positive cases. But behaving differently also means that persons are not as sick as they are when they would have or as they were when they contracted the Delta virus. So it is established that the new variant has not been as impacting as the Delta variant based on the report from Ministry of Health. And as a result, the Ministry of Health, while applying all the caution and all the precaution and taking all the necessary protective action, they are saying that we can take a bigger risk, calculated risk, as compared to the Delta variant. Of course, as I said, this is a situation where daily they are monitoring, and every day we are expecting a report and an update from them. The situation can change in terms of their guidance and instructions at any time. So let's keep that in mind as well.
So there is the science of the experts have indicated, and we're going to get to your CEO in just a while. They've indicated that the Delta, the Omicron, is not as debilitating as the Delta virus, the Delta variant. But they have, however, indicated that the transmissibility factor is 4-5 times greater, and I think we are seeing it. So you're saying that you're concerned, while the numbers are going up, the fact that hospitalization numbers remain stable, that's the basis upon which that argument is being made.
And very important, they're observing many of the cases, positive cases. So we have had some students, reports of students, very mild fever, very mild headaches, right? Nothing significant. And we are saying, and they are also saying, that we believe it is manageable at this time. So we've had, for example, a case where a child was tested positive in a school. And I'm speaking about last term. What do? Immediately, that child is isolated, that child goes home, and the entire class tested. And I'm giving a practical example now. Turns out that no one else in that class was positive. Teachers tested, parents tested, and so on. And so we're saying that that same approach, the protocols, would now be applied as it relates to contact tracing, as it relates to testing, as it relates to action to be taken. But I also want to quickly add, Cadore, that we understand if there's a parent that is extremely concerned and decide, I am not going to send my child out for the rest of the school term, I'm not going to send her out for the rest of the month. We understand if there is that panic and fear with any particular parent, we would understand and we would continue to provide guidance and all the possible support that we can give. But very important, we have to begin aggressively to stem the learning loss. But not just the learning loss, let me also say this. The number of reports, Cadore, the mental issues, the psychosocial issues, talking about students contacting directly to speak about friends, threat of suicide, and all of those things, we have to bring all of that into the big picture. And the risks are on both sides.
The risks are on both sides. 23 minutes and gone past the hour. Morning, Madam CEO. I'm just going to draft you into the conversation. There is an ongoing situation, and I'm going to ask this assuming that the ministry is aware of it. But before I get to it, let's talk possibly about the protocol. What is the established protocol? Because there's been conversations, the concerns are there as to how we treat with any outbreak at a school within the school setting. Madam CEO, what is the protocol that is established by the ministry so as to ensure the continuous safety of all persons involved in the system, in the education process?
Okay, so the protocol that we follow as the Ministry of Education is directly hinged on what is the protocol that has been put out by the Ministry of Health. just this week we had an updated set of guidance for quarantine and isolation. Okay, and if we take it from the top, there is the point A, which speaks to persons who are tested positive, and what happens to the persons that who have been in contact, what they call direct contact with such persons. Mm-hmm. And the document goes on to define direct contact as a person who was in close proximity to an infected person who was not wearing a mask, or a person who was living in the home of a person who has tested positive. So that's part A of the document. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we have to begin as a school, to think of a school setting. So critical there, again, you see what has been established in our guidelines, our protocol, back to school protocol, where we said that the wearing of masks is critical for persons. Okay? So all who can wear masks, must sanitize as the two most critical elements. And when they are not wearing a mask, then you should get yourselves outside of the 6 feet parameter. So this again, we have in our protocol, back to school protocol, that during eating time, children should be encouraged to maintain their distances. All right, of course, teachers, we expect that teachers will adhere to those guidance. So they're in the staff room, if they have to eat, they either go outside, take a walk under a tree rather than sit if their desk in the office are very close to each other.
Right.
And so far, this has proven to be serving well when we look at what has happened within the last term, despite the cases that were around.
What happens, Madam CEO, if a child contracts the disease at home and reports to school? So it did not start at the school. It was the testing, it was family members being diagnosed with the disease, the child reports to school. What should be the protocol? And I'm asking this given the fact that there is a situation that's developing, and I pray God that you are aware of it, and then within a school, within the confines of St. George, where up till yesterday, a child which came to school, reported positive with the virus, and my understanding from all my sources is that 2 other children that were tested positive at the school. Please explain to me, because up until now, the school, from all an indication today, a number of students have reported sick, and so I'm trying to, of course, be able, because these things have a way of getting out of control. What should be the principal approach to us dealing with that situation?
Right, so again, I refer to that part A of the protocol for quarantine and isolation. It says that if a person is tested positive, so if a student is, first of all, in our back to school protocol, we ask parents to keep any child who is feeling unwell at home. And we do, you see, the fight and the victory over COVID cannot be a single entity trying on its own. It has to be that collaboration among all stakeholders. But we have to do it together.
But the contact, But the contact tracing process, so the contact tracing is done by the Ministry of Health. Does the Ministry of Health, are they advised to contact the Ministry of Education in any case where a student is identified? Because that's, to me, from my understanding, this is what has happened. The family has 6 members of that particular family, and the child went to school. Which would, to me, I'm assuming that a red flag should go off right away when the Ministry of Health says to the Ministry of Education, listen, this is the situation that we have developing. So that even if the child reports to school, the question is, what should be the schools, the principals' response to that situation? Because no, it has been a case where 2 was tested positive yesterday, from all indication, and today there's been a number of students that's reported not being well.
Right. So in terms of that, the magnitude of what you are describing, that has not come to us as yet. But again, I want to go back to the point that I was making, that if the fight against COVID is to be won, it has to be that collaborative effort among all stakeholders. So again, we are appealing to parents that if children are unwell, or if there are persons in the home that are unwell, the guidelines from the Ministry of Health says that no one then should leave home where there are sick persons to go anywhere else. They should isolate. So the parents, again, I use this opportunity to appeal to parents, if there's a sick person, a positive case in the home, that you keep the children at home, that you do not send them to school. Now, of course, if the word comes to the principal that there is a child who is in school, not wearing a mask, and displaying symptoms, yes, because again, now it has to be when there is confirmation of a positive case in an environment. If the person who is positive is not wearing masks and has been in contact with other persons, these persons should isolate for 5 to 7 days. That's what is in the guidelines.
I would definitely.
If I can just add something here quickly, because I'm assuming the example that you gave is a case where the parent did not notify the school that the person is positive. Is that the example?
Well, I can't say whether or not whether they notified the school or not. But the school, they became aware. The child said to them, the school is aware. The school is aware.
So let me just add another. Let me just
add another angle to this. Because apparently the child came to school and they came back to school and said, "Listen, I am positive." That's for sure. So
let me just add another angle to that. And we probably might want to look at it as 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional. So the home, the CEO spoke about the home. Let us assume, as you said, that the principal is aware. So that child gets into the school environment. The principal has protocols to follow, right? So on entry, every child should be sanitized. On entry, every child should be wearing a mask. Right? And the principals are aware of what do they do if a child is not wearing a mask. You should not even be accepting that child, or you should be finding a way of providing or supporting or getting help from the ministry in that regard. Now, when that child gets into the classroom environment, as of this week, what is happening? The numbers would be very small. So in that school you're speaking about, I'm suspecting, let us say it's a pre or primary school, you probably might have about 20 students this week, or less than. Some cases might be 5 or 6 students. So they are physically distanced, right? In addition to that, immediately that the principal is aware that this child is positive or display any sign at all, whether it's a headache, the fever, whatever, the principal has actions, protocols to follow. Immediately contact the parent of that child. Immediately isolate. Immediately ensure that that child is removed from the compound. And there's some line of communication now, communication with the Ministry of Education. So it appears that that school has not communicated based on what the CEO said. Communication there is important. Engaging of Ministry of Health is now important. We have had cases, and a model case is the preschool in Bushage. I remember that example from end of November. The next morning, all of the students and parents and others were asked to report for the testing. Testing was done, results provided, and everyone was back to normal by the next.
And I'm happy you said it, Madam Minister.
So managing the situation, Cadore, is
and I'm happy you said that, because I was aware of that particular situation, and I must say, hats off to you and the ministry, your team, that one was dealt with quite speedily. So, because I'm wondering, how concerned are you that the protocols, and while I'm at that, I'm going to double back on in speaking with the ministry president of the GUET yesterday, he raised concern for the second time, actually, it's not the first time, regarding conflicting information and line of information that comes from the ministry. The district officers, I hope I got the term right, where there seem to be conflicting information as to what guidelines should be followed, how those protocols are executed. Has that been brought to your attention? And if so, where are we in addressing those concerns?
Right. So that particular pronouncement yesterday, I'm sure, emanated from a particular case, which I'm going to speak to, and I'm happy that you raised this. The Ministry of Education has a particular standard way of communicating with schools, and not just schools. It is copied to other stakeholders such as the union, the board of management, the church, and so on and so forth. The Ministry of Education sent a communication to all principals directing as it relates to the reopening of school, week 1 and week 2, I believe. Now, district officers are supposed to manage the implementation of those guidance, instructions, directives, whatever you want to refer to them as. Now, one of the things that is important is ensuring that the students who are at home are receiving instructions. And so just like any private sector company, if you have persons who are working from home, there must be systems to establish that they are performing their duties and all is well. So you don't expect to have a teacher on the beach this morning. You don't expect to see a teacher in the mall this morning, right? And so if the district officer picks up that there are some challenges, that while students should be instructed, that persons are not delivering that instruction for reasons that are not acceptable, of course, that district officer would be concerned. If that district officer appears at a school and Joseph Cadore is the principal, and the district officer asks, Mr. Cadore, how are things today? Is everybody online? Is everything working well? And you say, well, I can account for teacher 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, I have no idea. I've been trying to reach them, they're not responding, whatever. Then you, as the district officer, or I, as the district officer, would be concerned. Where is John, Jane, Mary? Why are parents calling to say that nothing has happened for the day?
So am I to assume, Minister, while you're at it, that district officer has a level of autonomy in terms of how they execute their functions without necessarily having it cleared by the minister or the CEO?
And that's the part that I'm coming to right now. So all of what I've said before is fine. That's their responsibility. Now that district officer, and I'm relating to the case that was spoken about, that district officer, out of concern, would have instructed principals to have all of their teachers report because of the supervision concern that was picked up. Now, where that district officer went wrong is that district officer should have consulted with the chief education officer before giving that new instruction. Because when it was brought to my attention, I called the chief education officer, and we both agreed that particular school or schools could have been dealt with in isolation. So if the problem didn't apply to all schools, there was no need to send the instructions to all schools. But that was immediately addressed.
Okay.
That was immediately addressed.
So you are aware of it, and
although we do have many challenges, we do have. I don't speak about them publicly, but God knows we do.
25 minutes on to the hour of 10 o'clock. We'll take a quick commercial break and we return to the conversation. My guest this morning, Education Minister Emmalin, Pierre, and the Chief Education Officer Angela Finlay, right here to the point. welcome back to the program, To The Point, for today, the 5th day of January. I just going to, before we get back into the depth of the conversation, and I've noticed here from the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force, notifying the motoring public of the immediate closure of the River Road thoroughfare. That road has been closed with immediate effect. The closure is due to unfolding situation of the undermining of the roadway with progressive collapse and cracks along the road surface, which poses a serious risk to the general public. As a result of this, traffic leaving and entering the town of St. George has been diverted to Montrush Public Road. Members of the motoring public are encouraged to exercise due care and caution while using this roadway due to an increase in the volume of traffic. Again, the general public, motoring public, is advised of the immediate closure of the River Road road network. All persons needing to access or exit the town of St. George, they will need to do so via the Montrush Public Road. And this is an announcement coming from the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force. Please be guided accordingly. Welcome back, my guest this morning, Education Minister and the Chief Executive Officer of the Ministry of Education. There are protocols that's in place, and one of those protocols that was established is the use of monitors and cleaners to assist with the sanitization and maintaining of that enabling environment that allows for children to learn. There have been concerns, though, ladies, that promise by the ministry is not being lived up to.
Well, I'm not sure what this actually means.
Well, my understanding is that it's cool, and you can help me. There should be is it 2 cleaners and a monitor, or 2 monitors and a cleaner. There is a monitor-cleaner ratio that is applied to each school, and there have been concerns that in some cases where there should be 2, there is 1. The schools have been existing with 1 for the term, and the resumption of the school term has highlighted the same challenges.
So every school, Grenada, Carriacou, and Peter Martinique, has been provided with additional resources, sanitizing and otherwise, and personnel, human resource, to support the particular schools. Remember, prior to, schools had a cleaner that was assigned, and what we did was to increase that, so to ensure that during the day that there are persons there to provide additional support to the school. Of course, when we look back at the last period, and again, based on the guidance of Ministry of Health, as the risk went down, of course, there was situations where we did not replace persons. So somebody left, they found another job, they probably no longer interested. Based on that particular situation at the time, in consulting with Ministry of Health, we started that reduction process. Of course, the ratio that you spoke about, the numbers you spoke about, was actually during that peak period when we started this process. Quite obviously, you would understand that if you're speaking about hundreds of persons, over 400 people, that's a significant cost to the government of Grenada. And so this is not just about having people in school. It is about 2 things: managing the situation, but also managing the financial implications. And so we have indeed, in some cases, reduced the numbers, and every term we reassess. So based on the current situation, right, mindful of the spread of this virus, the nature of this virus, the transmission rate of this virus, of course, we are considering the numbers again. But of course, as I said before, the numbers is not something that's constant. It would change, it would reduce, it would increase based on the current situation. So that should be made clear as well.
435-2041, that is a number on the inside. And you can feel free to call to share, raise your concerns, pose whatever questions you have to my panel. Certainly, you can also pose your questions and your concerns and your queries via the WhatsApp portal or the other social media platforms. Madam Minister, there is another concern coming from the GUT, and to put it frankly, Let's engage this caller. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, you're welcome. So good morning, Mr. Cadore. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Staff of GBN. Now, like this morning, I was listening to the radio, Mikey and WFM, and a lady called and trying and disrespect Nico. Nico said, that's bad, and the Minister of Education. I mean, it's ridiculous. You cannot keep the children home. They're doing the best. Look, Nico doing a very good job. He and Sean and the next one. They're helping the Grenadians. I really want them to put back that curfew on. These guys are in the fucking. If it wasn't for them, we would have been a lot green up in that Quebec. I'm sending this message to the minister. You don't study them, Mr. Pierre. Okay? You'll do your job. And that's it. Mr. Cadore and the entire staff, have a good day.
Thank you.
All the best, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Right, thank you.
All the best to you. At the center of the COVID conversation, Minister and CEO.
Just before you go forward, I'm not sure if CEO was able to hear, but just so that you know, if there is a technical problem, I was not able to hear anything.
Well, my apologies on that. I think the caller was basically highlighting the fact, commending you for the job, the position that you've taken as it relates to the reopening of school.
Okay, so maybe there's a technical problem.
And he was just saying, kudos to you. Continue doing the great job. At the center of the COVID conversation is the vaccine conversation. The vaccine issue element of it. The GUT, and I see you smiling. I can't help but I can understand the smile. The GUT has stated its position quite clearly, articulated its position. They are not going to be forced into any mandatory vaccination status being applied to them. And they have, in short, accused the ministry of using them as guinea pigs and accusing them as being the ones that's creating that unfolding saga as it relates to the contamination that's happening within the school system.
I don't want to find this funny, but I honestly don't understand because, number one, I'm not aware that the Ministry of Education has accused the union of anything. I'm not aware there's an ongoing saga as it relates to. I have no clue what is being referred to here. What I can say is that one, the government of Grenada has not made vaccination mandatory. The government of Grenada has used the approach of educating people of why they should get vaccinated. The government has taken the initiative, unlike in many places around the world where you cannot find a vaccine free of cost and available and accessible. The government has made it accessible to all persons locally who want to have it, including teachers. And the government continues to show why it's important that we go that route. In my conversation with the union, which is probably a little bit different to your conversation with them, the union has said to me that their position is that they don't have difficulty with regards to teachers being vaccinated. They don't support mandatory vaccination, but that some of their members are indeed vaccinated and they have no problem with regards to persons getting vaccinated. It's just that they have an issue with mandatory vaccination. So I've said to them consistently that because of what the science has shown, because of the statistics available, we would expect as a Ministry of Education that teachers would take all precaution to protect themselves, right, from COVID-19. So if my job requires me to be on site at a particular time during a pandemic, I'm going to do everything to protect myself. And that is why in visiting schools, I've consistently said to teachers, please wear your mask. We encourage them to continue to wear your mask. And I encourage them also to get vaccinated. Different people have different views on vaccination, Cadore, and I don't argue vaccination, right? I encourage persons that based on the facts, based on the science, everybody can have an opinion. Everybody can have an idea. And if we had to work on ideas and opinion, we would get nowhere. The statistics, and let's just look locally. Unfortunately, 200 people have died in Grenada based on COVID-19. May their souls rest in peace. But the facts, the statistics shows that 5% of the 200 people are people who were either fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated. 95% of these people were unvaccinated. And so, if I'm to draw a conclusion, I mean, the science can be so wrong. 95 versus 5, I would conclude that there are benefits in getting vaccinated. And that is why we say we have to be back in school. There are things you can do, washing your hands, sanitizing, wearing a mask, and getting vaccinated. And we encourage persons to do just that, to protect themselves and protect others.
At the center of the conversation is the children. And certainly there is the age, the legal age at which a child is allowed, can be vaccinated. But let me take that caller before I ask you the question. Good morning, caller. Are you alive? Go ahead, please.
Joe?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Good morning. A lot of people try to intimidate people by doing different things. Let's assume, or let me ask you, what makes a nation healthy?
Caller, just hold on for me. Minister CEO, are you hearing?
No,
not very clear.
Not trying.
It's not clear.
Yeah.
Almost nothing.
Yeah. Are you hearing now?
Faintly so, just a little, but not able to determine everything that is being said.
Okay, so maybe I have to speak on it.
You can probably translate, Joseph, or you can...
Yes, go ahead, sir. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Joe. So for your translation, I'll speak slowly. Anyhow, I'm asking myself, maybe you could put forth this question to the people with you. I'm wondering if a healthy nation is a wealthy nation, or a wealthy nation is a healthy nation. So which comes first? Priority of health or priority of education? And if you are not healthy, would you be able to take education? Now, I'm wondering, why is it that we are opening school in the midst of so much COVID virus in the island? 200 and something, maybe in a day or two. Is this case for concern? And furthermore, I'm asking myself, imagine a child comes to school, maybe not knowing, or possibly knowing, that he or she has the virus, and a principal says, look, you know, I feel that you have the virus, so I'll send you back home, or come in contact with your mother, or come in contact with the education department. What do you think, how do you think it would be accepted, perhaps, in the community? Do you think this would have an adverse effect on him, because parents doesn't want their children, or people do not want their children to know, or to know that they have this kind of virus, COVID and so on, because people would look at you as you are sick. Comment on this observation.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So, Cadore, I would say we can't be looking at this from a perspective of health and wealth. I've always said we need that balance. As a matter of fact, your ability to access certain resources, to access certain opportunities as it relates to your health, can also be connected to your wealth. And so if you look at what is happening internationally, countries have gone right now to looking at the long-term economic impact of the learning loss that's happening right now. So as a matter of fact, I've seen a report where the statistics is actually showing you how much economically would the students of today lose 10, 20 years down the road. How much would GDPs be affected down the road because of the learning loss now? How much would you be able to access health services down the road because of the learning loss now? So I am not saying let us go 100% health or let us go 100% education. I'm saying let us find a balance. It's a risk, and I was saying in communication with someone last night, a calculated risk that we have to take. So if these numbers were from the Delta variant, and if there were evidence of increased hospitalization, increased deaths, and other circumstances, I am sure that calculation may have been different at this stage. So weighing all the factors, all the students who have gotten COVID so far in recent times, observing their trends, observing, how quickly they recover, observing the nature of the sickness, and so calculated risk, right? But also, I'm just going to estimate from listening to the caller's voice, and the voice could also be deceiving. I'm suspecting that this caller does not have children in school. I'm suspecting. Now, there are many parents out there, many parents who cannot access a job right now because they have no one to care for their children. They actually don't have the resources to pay a caregiver to have their children during the day. So let's look at some other factors. I had a very unpleasant experience, painful experience, a couple weeks ago, to call a parent to say, I found your number. I actually sent my driver to search to find the number. Why? Because a student communicated with someone and said, please find the Minister for Education. This child is thinking of committing suicide. This child is depressed. This child needs to get out of the house. Now, I had the experience of calling that mother. Of course, I won't give details, except to say that when I called that mother, she was in shock. She did not even believe that this child would have been experiencing those thoughts, those emotions, those feelings at the time. And that's one case, many cases like those. So the psychosocial, what is happening in homes when parents go to work? I mean, someone sent me a video of something that was happening at home. I can't even discuss it.
But you think, Minister, that probably there need to be a shift in terms of where our focus is as to how we deal with this pandemic, in that there is the immediate impact of COVID and the ailments, and then the psychosocial element. Do you think possibly that's where the shift should be a year from now, 2 years from now? Because I keep saying the challenge to COVID is not an immediate. It is in the short to medium to long term.
That is why the response. CEO spoke about all stakeholders having a role to play. It is the reason why I made the plea that when students return to school, we have to make a concerted effort in the classroom to hype up, to ramp up the values-based education. Think about the homes when no one is talking about values. As a matter of fact, what they see every day is contrary to the values we want to promote. So we have to ensure that going forward, everyone, we spoke about community raising a child before, and people say, oh, I don't want to get involved because of how they would respond. But we have to ignore that. And regardless of how they respond, we have to get involved in the raising of these children, because I'm telling you, Cadore, we are going to see the results of what is happening now, not today, not tomorrow. We're probably going to see 10 years down the road. And that caller is going to be extremely unhappy with what he's going to see if we do not do something now. Students are dropping out of school. Students are saying, I don't want to go back again, right? I saw one of my colleagues in another country almost in tears speaking about a particular student who decided that when school reopened, I'm not going back. He went conducting on a bus. And he said, I'm done with school, And so we have to look at the holistic picture. I'm totally an advocate for health and protecting our lives and all of that. Totally. But I'm just saying this morning, that's great. That's important. But let's do that by creating that balance where all the other factors are also considered in the equation.
Finding a balance. Good morning, caller, you're live.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Cadore.
Yes.
Greetings.
Greetings to you. Go ahead, please.
Listen, 2 nights ago on this said radio station, we had that said lady, Miss Pierre, there as a guest. A question was asked relative statistics and the policy making and the decision making process. And part of her response to my question was as follows. Just a moment, please.
That the caller did miss that part where I said that the Ministry of Education has been collecting data. We could have said to persons on the last occasion when we reopened school, we could have said how many students were accessing online, how many students were not accessing online classes. We could have said how many students are comfortable, 80% and over, in terms of access and participation. Because access is one, participation is another. So we have...
Okay, that's only part of the response, but I'm baffled with what was said there. Can the minister explain what she meant and probably means, because it exists today, by these words? Thank you very much, sir. Have a nice day, will you?
Thank you, caller.
The unfortunate thing, Cadore, is that I didn't hear the words, but if you can summarize what was said.
So the caller was making reference to a response you gave on Beyond the Headlines on Monday regarding the use of data, collective data, that would allow for you to make decisions as to what happens going forward. And so you were highlighting the fact that, well, data has been collected. So he wanted you to expand on that for him. Probably was not satisfied with the response that you gave.
Okay, so I'm going to try. The Ministry of Education has been promoting and supporting our schools in identifying and realizing the importance of data in decision making. And we have taken several steps which we don't have time to discuss. I am very heartened by the improvement that we have seen as it relates to data collection and submission. So any data that the Ministry of Education can speak to is because that data is collected at the school level, and there has been a marked improvement in terms of the importance attached to data collection. The data we have been collecting over the past few months of COVID-19 speaks a lot to accessibility, right? Ensuring that children can access education. The data, to an extent, spoke to quality of access, right? So it's not just accessing. What percentage are you accessing? How regular are you accessing? So we have been collecting data. We've shared some data publicly. And the specific data that I think I recall the caller was asking about, which is the percentage of learning loss. I think I tried to explain to the caller that we are not in a position at this time that we can share that data publicly. We are collecting, we are assessing. To determine learning loss, it calls for across-the-board baseline and other assessment. We have been conducting assessment. We have been monitoring the quality of those assessments. Assessment is one thing. The quality is another, because what percentage of support did the child receive in completing this assessment? All of those factors. And so when we share data and statistics, we want to make sure that the quality is of a level that we are comfortable sharing. But the absence of complete assessment of data don't mean that you cannot make informed decision. You are guided by the data you already collected, and you continue to collect and assess and continue to make decisions. So when we decided some months ago that we were reopening school, of course it was informed by data collected, which showed that a large percentage of children were not engaged online. It showed that a large percentage of students were not engaging as much as 80% of the online classes. The data showed the amount of students who had internet and device challenges at the time. So data has been informing a number of decisions. And I have to say, in my position as Minister for Education right now, hats off to our principals and stakeholders who I believe have demonstrated in the last year that they do understand the importance. I've been very concerned about this. As you know, data collection and analysis is a critical problem regionally, and we have made consistent strides in that regard. And let me just add, the OECS has actually commended Grenada in the last year for the collection and analyzing and submitting of regional data. And so local data for regional purposes. And I do want to say, caller, I totally agree. Data is critical, very important, but there are different stages of the analysis of this data and the publishing of the data.
3 minutes gone past the hour of 10 o'clock. We're out of time officially, but this is one question I need to put into the mix. There is the question as it relates to, and we want to get to that, transmissibility. Who's the infection rates and who's more at risk, children or adults? And there is an ongoing argument, but I'm making reference to, and I'm not sure how concerned the ministry is. And I'm looking at 3 different actually news sites from the U.S. This is from this morning. This is from CNN, which is using stats from across the U.S., which shows that a record high number of kids are getting hospitalized with COVID-19, and it makes the comparison in data from the Delta, when Delta was a dominant variant, as it relates to now with Omicron, and they're seeing that it has literally tripled the number of children. I know we've highlighted that in our case we are not seeing hospitalization, but is that a measure of, is there any concern from our end, the fact that the numbers, the transmissibility factor, and I know initially the concern was like the virus did not affect children per se. Do you get a sense maybe that we may have underestimated that? We may have missed the mark somewhere? How concerned is the ministry that now children, more and more children increasingly are being affected by the virus? In the light of the fact that we are now opting to reopen school fully.
So, Joseph, once there's COVID, there must be concerns. You must always be concerned. And we continue to be concerned about all aspects of rolling out the reopening of school and COVID-19. But what I want us to note critically is that every single day there is monitoring and assessment of the situation by Ministry of Health. Right. Eyes are not closed towards COVID-19. The statistic has shown, and this is as of maybe November, data coming from the World Health Organization, UNICEF, UNESCO, is showing that the transmission rate, the number of persons, the possibility of students becoming COVID positive is far lower than adults. And let's bring the school situation, teachers. So it is more likely that a teacher would give a teacher as opposed to a student giving a teacher, right? This is what the official statistics showed as of November thereabout. Now, we have to admit that there's a new variant, and I'm sure throughout the world, not just in Grenada, people continue to observe. So we already observe the transmission rate is higher, right? The good thing so far, the positive thing so far, is what is observed, what is from the analysis being done, is that people are not getting as sick as with the other variants that we've had. And this is the plus that we have with this situation. But we can't close our eyes. As I said before, every day it continues to be monitored by the Ministry of Health, not education, by the Ministry of Health. We provide information to help in that assessment. The Ministry of Health, at any time that they determine that the risk has gone too high as compared to the risk of the other factors, health, mental health, psychosocial well-being, anytime they determine that that risk has surpassed significantly enough to shut all schools down, the Ministry of Health will notify us.
So your position is not cast in stone.
It's never cast in stone, never has been, never will be, because we are dealing with a very fluid situation that can change within minutes, right? And that is why it's so important to bring us back to the basic and the essential, the fundamentals, which remains every individual must take personal responsibility to protect themselves and, of course, to protect others. Wash your hands, sanitize where possible, wear your mask. And as I said to you, I'm visiting schools and I still have to be reminding even teachers, and I don't have a problem, but I'm saying let us take personal responsibility. The final thing that is so critical is let us take advantage of the opportunity we have to increase immunity against COVID-19. We do have options of vaccines that we can take, and we can have that administered for students. I have 3 children, Joseph. One is 11 and the other 2 above 12, and they have been vaccinated since the vaccine has been made available. I've been vaccinated 2 doses and the booster. And I've made that personal decision and that personal choice because I want to do everything that I can do to protect myself. God will do the rest, but I will take responsibility for all that I can do.
Making a personal choice. Madam CEO, any closing thoughts from you?
Well, I just again take this opportunity to appeal to everyone that to accept the reality that the fight, if it has to be won against COVID, it requires a concerted effort on the part of everyone. All stakeholders must come together. While we may want to look at the obstacles, we need to focus on opportunities, try to come up with, make recommendations, and let's see how together we can strategize to have education as the ultimate winner in this fight against COVID.
Thank you, ladies. We've gone over time, but for all good reasons. Indeed, it was a pleasure having you here. My guest is Education Minister Emmalin Pierre and the Chief Education Officer Angela Finlay. Ladies, don't run up too quickly. I'm just going to stay on the Zoom link just a bit for me. Just stay on the Zoom link just a bit for me, folks. This is as far as I can take you. As always, as the minister said, it's an act of personal responsibility. We all have to make that decision as to what can I do? Have I done enough? What else can I do in order to keep myself and my family safe? Until then, continue living life and loving life. Treat it each day as though your last day on planet Earth. And we wake tomorrow, we start living all over again. Until then, so long, everybody. JC loves you.
Ultratech gasoline and diesel, available only at Rubis stations.
Running low on groceries? Why not visit realvalueiga.com and experience our new online shopping platform. Place your order, then go out and enjoy your day to spend more time with friends and family. Delivery available within select locations or in-store pickup available. Sounds simple, right? It is. Stress less, live more with Real Value IGA online store, where good food begins.